Hey, welcome in Mad Talk Sports episode 66. Kyle, what's up?
Not much. Not much.
Just being a Celtics guy as always.
Enjoying the winning.
I mean, just get it out of the way right away. You know what you were going to say?
60 wins, dude.
Before 20 losses.
Yeah, it's amazing. First time since I think 2009 they've got 60 wins. So
okay.
Almost 20 years.
2009, the Celtics, that was the year. What happened? Where did they exit that year? Like what round?
That year they lost second round to the Magic
did they have
7 games
hurt?
without Kevin Garnett.
Garnett, that's what I thought.
They started 27-2 that season, and then Garnett tore up his knee, and then still got 60 wins, but wasn't the same.
You think you guys would have got another title out of the big three if he didn't get hurt?
I think so. I didn't watch, obviously I couldn't watch as much of them back then, but all everyone says that was really tuned into the team was that year they started better and looked like a better team than the year before when they won the championship.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense because
that came through.
Mm-hmm. Well, they didn't execute the second time around. They did the first time. I forgot to do the goddamn title slide. Here we go, though. Order and execution, Kyle. Episode 66. It's a little, homage to Order 66. So a big Star Wars guy, obviously. Kyle, I don't know. Do you care for Star Wars?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm the only one here talking to, I guess. But yeah, I like Star Wars. Not to the level of you guys and
sure.
you, Jay, and Fur. But yeah. I enjoy it.
Yeah. So, that's the theme for today is order and execution. So I didn't want to straight up rip off Execute Order 66, but it's going to play a theme. So, we gave Kyle a quick softball to talk about the Celtics right away here, but overall agenda is quick talk on Stefon Diggs. And then I want to spend a little bit of time talking on some NFL draft stuff and just QBs in general. And then it's really going to be mostly NBA today. So I'm going to talk a lot of seeding stuff for the playoffs, a top 10 list of players. And then finally, we have a couple of back and forths to do about what players and teams fall into different categories in the playoffs, like dark horse or people to look out for, people under pressure. So a lot to hit. And let's start with the big news, and that's the Stefon Diggs trade to the Texans. Kyle, what do you think?
I think it's a pretty, I don't want to say low risk, but not a crazy risk for the Texans, because I think he only has 1 year left on his contract anyways.
Yeah.
So if it works, you can bring him back. If it doesn't, it's only 1 year, and you still have 2 other pretty good receivers. So I don't hate it for the Texans. Kind of confused by the Bills. I know this receiver draft is supposed to be really deep, but they have a pretty late pick, so it's it's just a little bit confusing. I won't say they're doing a rebuild, but it's definitely a retooling of the roster because it was so old and they just kind of had to reset.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I agree with you there. One with their roster, because they kind of went all in the last couple of years with the way that they were managing their money. And it didn't work out, obviously. They didn't even get to a Super Bowl. And last couple of years, they got bounced the divisional round. But it's, they spent a lot of their money. But the Diggs thing was just, we knew this was going to happen. It was just a matter of when. And I think this has less to do with calculated roster moves, with the other fact of just he doesn't want to be here. And if that's the case, we don't want him here. Did you see any of his tweet stuff?
Yeah. It seemed like it was a pretty messy breakup between the team and him,
Yeah.
Even going back to not this past season, but 2 seasons ago, he would always be throwing fits on the bench when Gabe Davis would have a good game, or someone else on offense would be, getting a load of the catches or carries or whatever. And he was getting kind of, not forgotten about, but just he wasn't the hot hand that day. So he wasn't getting every catch he kind of was his first 2 seasons there in Buffalo.
Yeah, he definitely was. And then I think back-to-back years where his yearly numbers were okay, but he just kind of tailed off at the end of season, especially last year. By the end of the year, he was averaging like 40 yards a game during their win streak. So he just wasn't a really important part of their team. And clearly him and Allen's like chemistry fell off. Like apparently it just looked like they didn't get along anymore, honestly.
Yeah, I don't think they liked each other very much by the end.
No. So it sucks, but hey, he had a good run there. Like for at least the first 2 years there, I thought he was a top 5 receiver in the league. And he's still really good, and he's 31, so he's pretty young still, or not young, but you know what I mean. He's still got
some years left in him.
Right, kind of similar spot as like Keenan Allen or Mike Evans, like those early 30s guys. So good move though for the Texans, like you said, because it's not even this second round pick; it's next year's.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
it was this year's.
It's kind of interesting the way that all those trades worked out. Yeah, the Bills. It's a deep receiver class, but I expect them to run a lot more 2 tight end sets with Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid and run the ball with James Cook more. So for the Bills, like I still think they'll be all right. They'll still be a solid team. They got a top 5 quarterback still. I just don't think that they're in the class of any of the contenders. Like they're like the Texans leapfrog. They already did like leapfrog them, but this move just solidified it.
Are they? They're probably not even the favorites to win the AFC East at this point.
It's probably the Dolphins, but I'm feeling pretty good about the Jets.
If Rodgers can stay healthy.
Yeah. Even if he can't, though, Tyrod Taylor is probably already the best quarterback the Jets have had since like Fitzpatrick.
I wouldn't count them out of also taking someone later in the draft too and trying to like develop him for a few years.
Later
maybe
pick.
What's his name out of South Carolina? He started at Oklahoma. Yeah. Even though he's an older guy already, but
a lot of these guys are. So is Bo Nix, and then Penix. Yeah, a little older, but then like McCarthy and Daniels very young.
Jaden Daniels.
Yep. Because where did he start? He didn't.
Arizona State.
Him
and Ayuk played together for like a year or two.
Interesting. I wonder if wherever he goes, we'll talk about him again pretty soon here, but I wonder if where he goes will end up trading for Ayuk as a little duo. That'd be kind of cool. Well, let's go right into it then, as that leads us right to I want to talk a couple of things specifically with just QB prospects in general, because I've been catching up on like the prospects heading into this year's draft, and there's a lot of talk on quarterbacks because there's probably going to be 4 or 5 at least going in the first round. But I started to think about like other things we hear every year, and one of the big ones is that guy, he's a high floor prospect. Like we know he's at least solid. Think of like Mac Jones coming out of Bama. Everyone said he's got the highest floor, low ceiling but highest floor. And now he's a backup that got traded for a 6th round pick. So my question, is there such thing as a QB prospect with a high floor?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think that's something people say to like hype up the pick they made a bit, just be like, oh, this guy, like for this draft, it's like, oh yeah, Bo Nix, he might have a high floor, but he has nowhere near the ceiling. He's at the top. Like, you don't know that. Like,
right.
You don't know any of that. It's like, that's why I always hate before a draft happens. People are like, this is the worst draft in so many years. And like, people are saying this is like one of the worst running back drafts ever. It's like, you don't know that. Like maybe going into it, they don't look as good as everyone else, but what if there's like 3 Hall of Fame running backs in this draft or something,
Right.
You'll never know.
Yeah, I think you're right. Because like for every, year where it's the, look at this great draft class. Think about 2021 for quarterbacks where everyone said, most stacked QB class we've seen. And it's been well documented since that only one is a starting QB as of right now. Maybe
Fields 2 next year, depending on what happens with Fields.
Right, exactly. But either way, 2 of the people in the top 3 are certified 3rd stringers right now, in Zach Wilson and Trey Lance. Maybe Trey Lance is the backup now in Dallas, but
I think he is. No, do they still have Cooper Rush?
I think he just got signed elsewhere, actually.
And he's probably the 2nd string now.
Okay. Either way, not great. And even Trevor Lawrence, like I'm a Trevor Lawrence guy. I think you are too.
Oh, I picked him for MVP before the season.
we both did, and we both looked stupid for it, but it's real hype, and he's talented. We know he's talented. We just don't know if he's like going to be a really great quarterback that we might have thought. But I agree. We hype up these draft classes, and then they don't work out, and then the opposite happens. But as far as like high floor guys, no, they don't exist. Like Mac Jones, again, he was a great example. Sam Darnold, he was considered a high floor guy coming out of USC. And
we'll top see. 5, right? Top 5 pick?
I think it was third pick, second or third by the Jets. Third, because Saquon was second that year. That was the Baker, Saquon, Darnold. Rosen went like 10th or something like that.
Oh, I thought you were just naming the quarterbacks that went.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Baker, Darnold, Rosen, Lamar.
Josh Allen was in there.
Josh Allen. Oh, so, I mean, look at that. Josh Allen and Lamar are clearly the best of that, and they went the later ones. It's just so hit or miss. The way I'm looking at it, like as time goes on and I look at quarterback classes, there are a very select few that would be good no matter where they went. Now, that doesn't mean they would be great, but they would be at least good. And if I think of like a Justin Herbert, for example, like I think no matter where he went, he would be at least comparable to what he is today. Now, if he went somewhere better, he would be better as well. Like if he went to a Chiefs sort of thing, maybe he is like Mahomes-esque. Like for him, for example, I think he would automatically have been good.
I think about Burrow too. I think wherever Burrow was going to go, he was just going to be good.
I agree. And I think Stroud might actually get into that mix too, just because when you join like a shit franchise and you're immediately good, like that's how you kind of know. Like even maybe like a Cam Newton, I feel like would have been no matter where, he would have been at least solid.
Dude, you talk about Stroud. The Texans are like one of the laughing stocks of the league. And now people are like Super Bowl dark horse, perhaps,
Dude, they're all in right. Well, they're not all in, but like they're
kind of did this off season, got Diggs and, Danielle Hunter.
Yeah, huge. And Joe Mixon. They're the first team in history to add 3 guys that fit the following categories: 100+ catches, 1,000+ rush yards, 10+ sacks. They added all 3 of those types of producers to that team. So the Texans, I love it. And one draft class, one offseason, they went from laughing stock of the league to dark horse Super Bowl contender. And for a lot of people, it won't even be dark horse. It'll be more trendy than anything.
Yeah.
But we were talking overall classes, and the other one I did want to hit for QBs is 2020, because looking back, it's just aging really well. That's the Burrow, that's Tua, Herbert, Jordan Love, and Jalen Hurts. That's 5 starting quarterbacks, like 5 long-term starting quarterbacks. But at the time, it didn't really look like that. It kind of was like, it was the Tua Burrow conversation is what it was. No one talked about Herbert. No one talked about Love. Hurts was kind of like an afterthought at that point.
Well, because that year Herbert decided to go back to college for an extra year and kind of lost a lot of the hype he had the year before. He could have gone into the draft that had Murray and Daniel Jones as the top, and I think that was Dwayne Haskins.
And Dwayne Haskins. Oh man, yeah. R.I.P.
I think he could have entered the draft that year, but he decided to stay at Oregon for his 4th year and graduate. See,
I was not big on Herbert at all going to that draft class. Like I wasn't.
Yeah, I don't really remember much about him going in, but I remember watching his highlights like a couple weeks before the draft, and I was like, oh, this guy looks pretty good. I didn't think he'd be as good as he was right away.
Right. But, that was super impressive, just his rookie year. But, Burrow, like he was all right his first year, then obviously he got hurt.
And like then halfway through the season, yeah.
Yeah. But he looked decent. And he obviously was coming off that awesome season at LSU. And then Tua was the one who everyone was like, man, he's got that hip injury. I don't know. And, look, has nothing to do with how his career is now. Like now, if it's injuries, it's totally different. It's just crazy.
He still has the I don't know around him, though.
I agree. And that's what I want to do next year is kind of talk about like a redraft of what those teams would do if they were doing it over again with a draft. Because I think we'd both agree Cincinnati still goes Burrow, number 1, right?
Yeah.
Like, not much discussion needed there. But what does Miami do? I would say they go Herbert.
They had the second quarterback taken right in that draft.
Yep. Yeah.
I don't know, man. Jalen Hurts would look pretty sick in those Dolphins uniforms. And that guy, I know the quarterbacks aren't like, I mean, wins aren't a quarterback stat, but he just wins, you know?
Yeah.
I know they had their fall off this half of the season, but second half of the season, but he just wins games.
That's fair. And I still like Hurts. I'm not out on Hurts at all. Interesting. Do you like Hurts better than Herbert? Like, would you rank him ahead of him?
I feel like they're probably like the same tier of quarterback, but I think it might come down to like, you like a guy that can move around and like kind of take some hits if he needs to help like win late in games, and Hurts can do that, and he's shown he can do that. Like how many, especially the what was the 2022-23 season, he was always making like late plays, running, scrambling for touchdowns. I really think that's something that Herbert can't really do, but he has more arm talent. You know, it's kind of what do you value more?
Yeah. See, for me, I like Hurts. I don't know what it is about Herbert, but I really do like him because he's not stiff back there. Like, he can move too. He's obviously not the athlete that Hurts is, but you know, he moves like Burrow or a little bit better than a Burrow, for example. But if I were going Hurts, it would be more so because, hey, I've seen him play really good in a Super Bowl against a good defense in the Chiefs. That would be my only thing that I'd be like, well, on the Herbert side, I can't really argue that. But something about Herbert, I really like the raw skill and talent, but I do like Hurts as a leader a lot too. So it is close for me. I'm higher on Herbert. I think he's got a little bit more room to grow. I think Hurts kind of is what he is already, but I can't fault you for going that way.
Yeah.
Okay. So then for you, the Chargers, you would have them still taking Herbert, I imagine.
Yep.
And for me, assuming Herbert wasn't available, I'd have them taking Hurts because either way, they didn't want to start their quarterback. Like, they wanted to start Tyrod that year, and just, you know, the needle in the lung got in the way.
Was that like week 2 or something?
Yeah, exactly. It was week 2 against the Chiefs, and, you know, right before kickoff.
They almost won that game.
They did. They took it to OT. See, now we get to the Packers part of it, and obviously neither of us are good. Actually, I can't say for sure if you would have them switching their pick to Tua, but
yeah, I do.
I would. You do? Okay. Explain.
I just don't like Jordan Love.
Why not? Because because it's just not fair. You like the Barstool guys who are like, it's bullshit. Packers can't have 3 straight.
Pretty much.
So it's out of spite.
Yeah, I feel like they're Tua's done it for more seasons too. Like, been a above average quarterback. Good when he's a pretty good quarterback when he's healthy and things are rolling, but like, I'd say for the last 2 seasons he's been, you can't argue he's not an above average quarterback.
I'd put him average to above average, but Jordan Love's got more playoff wins than him already.
Weak NFC.
Weak NFC. I would have the Packers sticking with Love because, one, it was a project, obviously. You know, like, we weren't, you know, ready to move on from Rodgers quite yet. And I don't know if you could have gotten away with putting Tua 3 years behind. Like,
no, and maybe his brain wouldn't be soup right now.
Wow. I would not want Tua in a cold. I would not want him for the Packers. He can't play in the cold. Maybe he adjusts like all the other, you know, Packers QBs have done. Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers, California, and Brett Favre, Mississippi. Like, maybe he adjusts, but it's not just the me thinking, oh, he's soft, he can't play in the cold or anything like that. To some degree, he's got a weaker arm by NFL quarterback standards. Like, obviously, he's got, you know, an incredible arm by normal human standards, but for an NFL quarterback, he's on the weaker side of that. And that isn't great when you play in Chicago every year in the Windy City, you know, and when you play in Green Bay 8 times a year, 4 of which is going to probably be cold or at least windy. Like, I do think that's a factor. And I also think the Packers value like kind of tough guy quarterbacks. Not tough guy, but like durable is a better word. And Tua doesn't hit that. So even just if I'm putting skill and ranking aside, I would still go Love.
All right.
However, my other thing I was going to say is looking back on it, I think the Niners or Saints would have taken Jordan Love because both of them were in a position to like redshirt him and it would have worked out for them in the long run. But
who did the Niners end up taking that year? I know it's not a quarterback, but I forgot
I
who
think
they're
that was
picking.
the Ayuk draft.
Was it?
I think so.
I can't remember. Too many people get picked in the NFL draft.
Was it 256 or something crazy?
Depends how many comp picks there are every year.
But I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty.
That sounds right because he's coming up on the end. That was the 2020 draft, first round pick. Yeah, because he's coming up on his next year is his 5th year option. So yeah,
was Ayuk the Jefferson draft class?
Yeah, because Burrow and him went to the league at the same time.
Yep. Because I personally think that in that draft, the Packers would have taken Jefferson over Love if he were still there. Like, I think that's who the Packers wanted. But then when the Vikings took him, they were like, all right, well, best guy on our board's a quarterback. Guess we're doing this thing again.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's quickly pivot to the upcoming draft class for QB. So I do want to go quick on this so we could spend most of our time on the NBA. Quarterback draft prospects. So I want to go through best landing spots. So I think we could both agree Caleb Williams going number 1. So why even talk about it? And actually, Chicago is all of a sudden a pretty good landing spot too. So I'll give you that.
Offense is looking pretty good.
I would agree. Weapons have been mounted. What about Drake May, though?
Where's his best fit, or where do I think he's going to go?
Let's start with fit.
I'm going to be realistic here, and I'm not going to be like some team late in the draft. No, it's
right.
Probably I don't know. I think he could do good with the Commanders. Terry's a good good receiver. They got Eckler who he could drop short passes too. Yeah. And I feel like that's probably where he's going to go anyways. I think he's better than Jaden Daniels. So I think he's going to go there. Him and Terry could probably do something. The other receiver they drafted from Penn State a few years ago? Jahan Dotson's there too. He's a good receiver. I think he could do pretty good there.
Yeah, I'm split on Drake May on my thoughts with him in general. But if I could choose an ideal landing spot for him, I'd want him to go to the Giants. I think Daboll and May would be a good combo because May physically is kind of like a Josh Allen. Like, he's a big guy and he's a little raw. Like, his footwork isn't great. At least I'm not a grind in the all 22 on college football by any means. But that's been like the big critique from scouts on May is he's got the physical talent, but his feet are just messy. So he misses some throws. So I think like a Brian Daboll would be great. But like you said, being realistic, Giants would probably have to trade up to get him.
Where are they, pick 5?
Yeah. Though it's possible. You never know with these draft classes. Like, everyone knows Caleb's 1, but after that, it's who knows? It seems like everyone's fallen in love with McCarthy and at this point. But for Jaden Daniels, I actually like his fit in Washington too, because I think he fits with the Cliff Kingsbury offense because he's kind of Kyler Murray-esque. That would be the high end. But then if you're getting more like mid-tier, I think he'd do well in like New Orleans or Tennessee if he fell. He's not going to, but if he did, that would be kind of nice. But Washington, I actually do like the fit. Just don't like
Daniels.
Yeah,
I could see. They're in division, so I wouldn't like it because he does have a lot of upside. But I could see the Vikings trading up and taking him or Drake May.
The writing seems to be on the wall that they're going to trade up for someone, but I don't think they're getting either of those guys. I don't see Washington trading out.
I could see New England because I follow a lot of Celtics fans and writers on Twitter. So I see what?
I said, you don't say.
But I see I see a bunch of like Patriots stuff too.
Yeah.
So a lot of them are like they wouldn't mind trading out and filling another position of need, like a receiver like Marvin Harrison Jr., a tackle like Joe Alt, or an edge rusher, a line, other positions of need. Because like a quarterback's not fixing their roster anytime soon. So I think some people's thinking is like maybe like what the Bears did last year is like trade back, get some more positions of need, and kind of down the road get your quarterback once everything else is kind of figured out,
Yeah, I hear that, and I've heard that take too in general. I think it's simply the fact, or this is what they should be looking at. They should say, the guy we want that we can get, do we think he's a franchise quarterback? If it's yes, you take them. If you're not sure, then you trade out. Because
or if you get like some insane offer you can't say no to,
maybe, but you look back and like think about, for instance, the Bills gave up a lot to trade up to get Josh Allen. Now they traded that with the Chiefs. So like for the Chiefs, it worked out to their benefit. But imagine they did that same thing with a currently QB needy team. You look back and you're like, oh, great, we got 2 first-rounders, but they got Josh Allen. If you think someone's got that potential, like, and you feel good about them, you got to take them, because so many teams get lost in the, we've got a solid team, we're a quarterback away. Think about the Broncos for the entirety of our lifetime, sans their time with Peyton Manning, or think of who would be a current version of that. It was the Niners. People kind of say that.
A quarterback away.
Yeah, a team that's a quarterback away. The Steelers. That's what
I was about to say. The Steelers too.
Right. Or you could argue the Browns now are a quarterback away. Yeah. And it's hard. I think if you like one of them, you take them. If you don't and you're unsure, then yeah, you either take a stud or you trade out.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's like there's a chance maybe they don't like any of the guys and they trade back and even take, a Bo Nix or a Penix late in the first round.
Yeah. Yeah, because if that's the case where you're like, I think it's Caleb, and then everyone else is just a mystery box, then yeah, trade out. That's fine. But I don't know if they feel that way or not. McCarthy, I think his best fit is Minnesota because, just of what they have in place. I think any quarterback that lands in Minnesota is going to do pretty well, honestly. And if not Minnesota, I'd say Denver. I could see him doing well with Sean Payton.
I think he needs to go somewhere where he has a year to redshirt. He can't start year one. I don't know. I think I can see the Giants taking him. I don't know if it's the best fit for him. I can see the Giants being like, we're kind of out on Daniel Jones. He's going to be out like probably half the year anyways. Because what did he tear his ACL? Was it? What was Daniel Jones's injury?
I don't recall.
It was something. He tore something. It's like almost like a year recovery time. So I could see them taking him and just be like, I guess we'll give it another shot at QB with this time our GM and coach. We get the guy we kind of want this time instead of inheriting a project. But then you're just drafting another project. I don't know.
Dude, get ready for the Giants to take a swing here. I think the GM and coach are both on the hot seat together, and they are not.
Daboll's on the hot seat already?
Yeah. Yep. Because the Giants have been, post Tom Coughlin, the Giants have been impatient. Like Joe Judge, in and out. And before that, it was what? Ben McAdoo, in and out. I don't remember who was before that. I think there was one more in between. But it's been this kind of cycle, and Daboll has been there. The word is, there's a lot of reports now, is that he rubs a lot of people the wrong way, and that he's kind of hard to work with, and that like his assistants, like, they end up getting fired pretty frequently. Like he's kind of a hothead is what they're starting to say.
What football coaches aren't hotheads though?
Yeah, I mean, I hear you, but when you're losing and you're a hothead, like I think they're going to start feeling some heat, and they're going to be desperate to, unhitch their boat off Daniel Jones and onto someone else, because man, God, that was the worst decision in one of the worst decisions in football history, in my opinion.
To pay him and not Saquon.
Yeah, to pay him at all.
Yeah, it's crazy. They had that 1 year. That's why I give Dable more credit. He had the 1 year he came in, they won a playoff game.
It did.
Yeah, and then this year, all their like Saquon was out for a couple weeks. Daniel Jones went down halfway through the season, and it was just kind of a really bad year. Like they got Brian Burns now, so they have like a good pass rusher. I think they're building the team up a little better. So I think he gets probably 2 more years. If they stay the way it is, if he makes the playoffs again, then obviously he has more time.
Right. Yeah, that's fair. And I like Daboll. Like I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. Just know that things get hard. Things get hot pretty quick in the NFL. Wrapping up best landing spots for Michael Penix. I actually really like Miami as a kind of long-term option there in case they're not sure on Tua. Seattle, I like a lot. And then dark horse, Detroit.
Ooh, okay.
If they aren't sure on
Penix, you said?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I could see Oakland maybe taking a swing.
Vegas now.
Not Oakland, Vegas.
Vegas, baby.
Damn. Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, the Raiders taking a swing at him. And then maybe do the Rams have their pick this year?
I believe so, yeah.
I could see them taking him later in the draft because, like, even though he's older, sit for like maybe a year because who knows when Stafford's gonna retire. He's like year 15 or so.
Yeah, I think he's like 37 years old.
Yeah, and he's had obviously a lot of injuries in his career, a bunch of like back issues, which kind of crazy. He's played this long with how he like broke his spine a few years ago.
Let's look him up. I want to see how old he is. 36. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see them taking like him or Bo Nix later in the draft, just as like an option.
Is that the fit you like for Nix?
I don't know if it's a fit I like. I'm going to be honest. I don't like know where all these guys are going to be the best at. These are just teams I could see taking a quarterback, being like Nix. I don't know. I'm looking at the draft order. See the Saints taking a swing on him.
Yeah.
Denver, him or Penix could be in Denver.
I agree with that.
Maybe they want like an older guy to try to, get the team going a little bit. I don't know. Because a lot of these other teams I'm looking at later in the draft, the Seattle, either of those guys could go to Seattle. I could see, Nick staying in the, Northwest.
Yeah, I thought about that too. I think that could work out.
Sit for a year behind Geno, learn the offense.
Yeah, and they got good weapons there, so that's not a bad landing spot in general. Like honestly, whichever quarterback falls to like one of like the Vikings or the Seahawks, like those types of teams, like man, they're gonna be so much better off, honestly, than whoever lands on the Patriots. I think is in for a rough start to their career. We'll see how things play out long term. I like Mayo. I kind of hope he does well.
Washington has kind of got a weak O-line. I don't want to see,
They did spend a lot of money on it, though. They got Biadasz and I think one more guy.
Yeah. But still, always just throwing money at something doesn't fix it,
Yeah. That's true. So I was going to do kind of favorite prospects, but honestly, for me, for the QBs, the only one I'm sure on is Caleb. The rest I think totally depends where they go.
Yeah.
So
I think outside of Caleb, Daniels probably has the highest upside because he can move a bit too.
Yeah. I like May's upside. I mean,
I could see May being like Herbert Light.
Herbert Light.
All of his comparisons are to Herbert, so.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that. I like Daniels too. So the last thing before we go NBA was just going to be, what order do you expect the QBs to go in? So I'll just rattle mine off quickly. I think it's Caleb 1, Daniels 2, May 3, McCarthy 4 with someone trading up, Penix like somewhere in the teens, Nix somewhere in the 20s, and then Rattler low to mid second round.
All right, so I got Williams first, obviously, Daniel second, then May, then I have Nix, Penix, and then I say Rattler's probably like a third round guy.
You could see it
if I had to guess.
Yeah. Okay. I'm excited to talk basketball, Kyle. I know we spoiled a little bit of it with the Celtics right away, but NBA playoffs, and this is where we're really going to get more into the order side of things. So I've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 segments of teams where we're going to talk about the seeding and who it means the most to benefit from that race that they're currently in. So our first group of people is that middle section of the Eastern Conference. That's the Cavs, the Magic, and the Knicks, who are currently 3 through 5. It looks like the Bucks are trying to fall into this clump, but for argument's sake, I'm going to say they're the 2 seed to keep this simple. Between these three, who do you think most needs to get that 3 seed?
I'd say the Magic would get the most confidence out of it because they're such a young team.
Yeah.
I'd say that benefit them the most. Obviously, it benefits all 3 teams to be, the 3 seed.
For sure.
Higher seed, the worst team you play. But I think the Magic, they would have momentum going in, to their first round, and then if they win that, they have a lot of momentum against like a Bucks team. Say they win the first round too, because that's not a given for them this year.
You're right.
Like I think the Magic benefit the most out of getting the 3 seed, and then I if I'm the Cavs, I don't want to play the Knicks again, even though they won't have Randall because he today was declared out for the season, but still they just kicked their ass last year.
Yeah.
So if I'm the Cavs, I would do anything to avoid the Knicks in the first round.
Dude, that's what I put down too. I said Cleveland needs to get to 3, period. Afraid of Knicks, period. in my notes. I agree with you. I think that they're just like, it's one of those like psyche things. Like, all of a sudden you're the 4 and the 5 and you're playing them. It's like all that work. Well, what did it get me? We're right back where we were last year.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with you. But yeah, Magic would definitely benefit from the confidence boost. I think the Knicks, they're going to be what they're going to be no matter where they land.
It'll be a tough out no matter what.
Exactly. And I don't think it necessarily benefits them more so to play the Bucks versus the Celtics necessarily. Obviously, they probably don't want to play the Celtics, but regardless, I would agree. I would go Cleveland to get 3 because that's the only way they can completely avoid the Knicks.
When even then, they might play the fucking Heat. It's like,
Yeah,
I just don't believe in this Cavs team.
I don't either. And I think Donovan Mitchell is probably going to get traded this summer.
Well, he doesn't believe in the team either. No. The other day, I don't know if you saw that, he was like, it's fucking April. We have to figure this shit out after they lost. I don't know who they lost to. I don't remember, but he was pretty mad.
Donovan Mitchell's kind of seemed a little cranky in general. Like, it just never felt like he wanted to go to Cleveland. Obviously, I think he wanted to go to New York.
Like, I think New York or Miami he wanted to go to.
Oh, that would be awesome.
That would be cool.
You're afraid.
No, I'm not.
You would be. Miami is like the one team that like I feel like a Celtics fans kind of gets you trembling a little bit, even if you're better than them. But let's just talk about them, because they're in this next group, and that's the Pacers, the Heat, and the Sixers. They're currently that 6 through 8. So the lives of these 3 teams can change a lot in the final like 5-6 games here. Because as we kind of just talked about, like you get to the 6th seed, you're probably playing the Cavs. Or if not, you're playing a young Magic team. Or if not, you're playing a Knicks team who's going to be a little hampered. So the 6th spot is pretty, that's obviously desirable versus 7-8. 1, you're in the play-in still. I don't believe in either Eastern Conference play-in team like for 9-10 at all. But still, you'd rather not play those, and you'd also rather not play the Bucks or the Celtics in round 1.
The thing is, the Heat they probably do not care about.
No, they don't.
They beat both those teams last year. So, like, they they probably care the least. Like obviously, if they'd like to not be in the play-in,
Mm-hmm.
like they'd love to probably have like the automatic spot and not be like last year where they barely made the playoffs when they had to have a comeback against the Bulls in the play-in game and then
Oh,
made the
yeah.
finals. But it's got to be the Pacers want to succeed the most because they'll play another young team. It's like two young, pretty inexperienced. Like the Pacers do have some older guys like Miles Turner and Siakam that have
Yeah.
playoff experience, especially Siakam, who's been on like multiple deep runs with the Raptors back like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Sixers. I want them in the first round because the Celtics just beat them every time.
You're
I
right.
want them to be the 8 seed. The Celtics just pack them up every playoffs, every time they play.
Yeah. Last year was their chance to get you, and they blew it.
Yeah.
But I totally agree. We're on the same page again. Indiana needs to stay out of the play-in, first of all, because they might all. I think they're a team that, even if they're the best of the 4 in the play-in, that could stumble their way out. Young and inexperienced for the most part, like you said, and even Halliburton, while he's gotten back to normal, he hasn't been the same as he was at the beginning of the year. But their only chance of winning a series is getting to that 6 seed and playing one of those young teams. That is the only shot they have. Miami, like you said, they don't care. They do not care, and they'll do just fine. Philly, I think they would love to get to the 6 seed because then, you avoid the play-in, you keep Joel rested, but also he might need to break off the rust still. So
even the 7 seed, I think they'd be fine with the 7 seed. Because I don't know, I think the Bucks Sixers series would be pretty good.
I agree.
And it's kind of crazy those two teams have never played in the playoffs in the Embiid and Giannis eras.
Yeah.
The Celtics have played each of them like fucking 8 times, and it sucks every time.
And you always play the Heat. Like you guys, unfortunately for you, Kyle, you have not had any. You had no year where you could just like avoid like the teams that are hard.
The year we made the finals, we had to. It was the Kyrie and KD Nets.
Yep.
The
That was
Bucks,
a tough series.
they didn't have Middleton, but they were still really good that year.
Yep.
Because Lopez wasn't washed yet.
Wow.
And then the Heat, obviously, the Heat are a hard team to beat. It went down to the last shot of the game pretty much in Game 7.
Yeah.
So even the year they made the finals, they had a tough road and then went up 2-1 and choked it against the Warriors. I'll never forget during Game 4, I was watching with my brother, and Curry was going off, and he won in the game. I looked at him and was like, they're not going to win another game this series, and they didn't. That team, they were just so defeated after that.
Yeah, they lost the series that game.
Yeah, during mid fourth quarter, I remember just being like, "It's done, it's over." And my brother's like, "Oh, stop overreacting." But I was correct.
You were correct, and I still think you guys were the better team than the Warriors too. Like that was just a choke job.
Past is the past.
Past is the past. All right, let's move over to the Western Conference. Let's start at the top. Thunder, Nuggets, T-Wolves, probably going to come all the way down to the wire.
I'd say. Let me look at the matchups quick, but I'd say as of now.
Oh, that's true.
Dude,
the matchups are all jumbled.
Yeah, right now though, the Thunder would be playing the Suns as the Thunder, the 3 seed right now. I wouldn't want to play the Suns in the first round, even if you like. I think the Thunder. I don't know because the Suns have so much playoff experience between like Booker and Durant now, and like the Thunder have practically none. But if Denver was a 3 seed, I don't think they'd care because they packed up the Suns last year. They could beat Dallas or New Orleans. Denver could be the 3 seed and it wouldn't matter at all. I wouldn't change anything about them for me. Timberwolves, I wouldn't want to play one of like the Lakers or Warriors, in the first round.
Dude.
Because like no matter how bad they've been this year, they have so much championship playoff experience. It's hard in the West. Like I don't know. Denver could be any of the seeds. I don't think they'd really care. Minnesota and OKC, I think they'd both want to be 1 or 2, so they'd have home court against, Denver whenever they'd play.
Yep,
I think the Nuggets probably care the least.
I would agree with that.
Seeding. Like they want the 1 seed because they can beat anybody in the league. Obviously, they're champions. They look great again this year. But I'd say Thunder would want the 1 seed the most. Timberwolves second, and then third is the Nuggets.
For the most part, I agree with you. The Nuggets, yeah, for them, they know they can win anywhere. I think they do kind of want the 1 seed. It does seem they're motivated for it.
Oh, yeah, I'm not saying they don't want it, but I feel like they'd be comfortable at any of the seeds they land in the top 3.
For sure. And Denver's the only team in the West where you have no questions. Like every other team, you have questions. Thunder, you have questions. Minnesota, obviously.
Minnesota, your question is Karl Towns going to be back for the playoffs?
Exactly. So I think they'd want it the most of getting the 1 seed because theoretically, as the 1 seed, you're playing the 8 seed. So, the worst team to make the playoffs in theory. That's not really reality in the West, but
the West playing's crazy. It's the Pelicans, where if Brandon Ingram comes back, I could see them beating the Timberwolves.
Yeah, dude.
Sacramento, I don't see Sacramento winning anything this year.
Let's go to the next clip.
Then. Oh, I didn't know that was the next 6.
Well, that's actually the following one after this, but it's just crazy. Look at this 4 through 6. The Clippers. I think the Clippers are a really good team still, even though they've struggled. And the Mavs are scary to me. And I had the Pelicans originally, but like you said, the Suns have replaced them in the 6 seed currently. But all 3 of these teams are terrifying.
Yeah. I guess Clippers, I'd say if they're either the 4 or the 5 against the Mavericks, they feel comfortable because they've beat them. Obviously, Luka wasn't Luka back then a few years ago when they kept playing the playoffs, but you kind of have some playing sports when you beat teams before, and it's you have a confidence going. Yeah. It's we've taken care of these guys. They might be a little better now, but we've done it before. We can do it again.
I would agree.
In the Mavs, I'd say in a Clippers series, they would probably want home court, but home court against the Clippers doesn't really matter when every away team is kind of the majority of the fans there.
Yep. So when they matched up, because the Clippers and Mavs matched up twice in the playoffs, I think.
Yeah, in the bubble, and then the year the Clippers made the conference finals against the Suns, and then the Suns lost to the Bucks.
So the Clippers, when they beat the Mavs the second time, I'm pretty sure the Clippers lost game 1 and 2 at home.
Yeah,
and then they went on to
winning 7
the series or 7. Okay.
Yeah, but in that season though, Porzingis did get hurt in that series.
Shocker.
And they barely played Jalen Brunson.
Didn't Kawhi get hurt too?
He got hurt against the Jazz in the second round. Because that year the Jazz was the 1 seed. Clippers were the 4.
Okay.
And the Jazz went up 2-0, and then Clippers won 4 straight, and that was the Terrence Mann breakout series where they just went super small.
Yeah.
And forced Gobert to, actually guard someone on the perimeter, and they just kept bombing threes on him.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so
I still think the Clippers win the finals that year if Kawhi doesn't tear his ACL.
I agree with that. No arguments here.
We didn't really talk about the Suns much in this one.
No, because originally I wasn't expecting them to be here because I had them prepped for the play-in conversation. Now that they're in this discussion, I think for them they would benefit the most of getting into that 4-5 spot.
Yeah,
I think the Suns would be in a good spot to do so because I don't really like their chances as a 6 seed versus, especially if the 3's Denver, but I still don't like them against OKC even.
I think OKC I think they're 2-2 on the season or something, but when OKC wins, they just beat the shit out of them. But in the playoffs, I think Phoenix would be kind of fine with that matchup because, like I said earlier, Durant, multiple finals runs, conference long playoff runs. Devin Booker has a few decent, playoff runs under his belt. Bradley Beal's been he hasn't gone far, but he has experience in the playoffs. I don't know. The Thunder probably would beat them, but I think it'd go probably like 6-7 games, like hard-fought games. But yeah, I don't know. I think their preferred matchup would probably be get to the 5, Clippers stay at 4, and hope someone on the Clippers just gets hurt like they did last year when they played.
Yeah.
In the playoffs. Yeah.
It's not a bad bet to make. Bank on the Clippers having an injury.
And James Harden's been terrible recently.
Because it's
I think
April.
He's been averaging like 7 points a game for his last 5 games or something. Crazy looking back a few years when he would average 36, and now he's only getting 7 a game.
Yeah. Harden. I don't want to talk about Harden. All right. Last group about playoff order, execute order. So this is the 7 currently the 7 through 10. The Rockets are still on the heels of the Warriors too, but
they're 3 games back now. I'm looking at the standings. They're probably not going to make it unless Golden State or the Lakers just don't win any more games.
That's possible.
It is, but it's kind of a long shot. But none of these guys have preferred matchups. I'm going to go by if the Lakers miss the playoffs again for the 3rd time in the LeBron era, even though they won a championship, I think it's kind of a failure of a whole thing. They didn't win a championship, but besides one other year, which was last year, even though they were playing and got pretty lucky with their matchups, they've sucked. They've been terrible. They haven't been a good basketball team besides the 1 year they won. You can't take it away from them, but just has not been a good. Warriors are just kind of time's passed you by, old man,
All of them.
Yeah, that's besides Curry, that roster is either washed up old guys or young guys that really can't contribute much yet.
Yeah.
Kings, I feel kind of Pelicans and Kings have to make it. They have to. Or I think changes will be made to those rosters, big changes. If the Pelicans miss the playoffs again this year, I think they got to trade someone McCollum, maybe a couple guys, It's I don't know. That core is confusing they have because they're all kind of injury prone.
Yeah,
I would agree with that. And the Kings, I want them to make the playoffs again just because, feel good. Even though they probably won't win one. They had their best chance to win a series is probably last year, but just seeing them in the playoffs is cool, They deserve it. Over the Lakers and the Warriors, they definitely deserve it.
It sounds like you're rooting for the small markets.
I am.
Okay. Yeah, I like it too. I agree though. Sacramento and New Orleans need it the most of escaping, getting into the playoffs out of these guys because it would be so much more devastating for those franchises to not. The Kings last year, it looked like they had turned their franchise around, which they did. And now they're still really good, but they're just in an elite conference of really, really good teams. So them specifically, but the Pelicans haven't even sniffed the playoffs yet. So I agree, they can't miss it again, but still it's a lot of failure laying at the, potentially at the feet of these old heads in the Lakers and Warriors. Cause I agree with you. The Lakers era for LeBron would be considered a failure if they missed the playoffs again. And for the Warriors, the era would be over. It already is, but it would be over. Cause at least last year they snuck in another series win.
Well, I think Klay Thompson might be a free agent. He could leave. He could just leave.
Yep.
Draymond, they could just be kind of done with his shit and trade him, If they don't make the playoffs, it's an end of an era. Curry will still be there. but like both of those guys could be gone next year.
Yeah, I agree. And it's kind of similar to the Lakers to where, this second half of their, the post KD Warriors they got the one championship, but everything outside of that's been relatively a failure. That's the only, that's one of 2 years they've made the playoffs besides that. So
Yeah, last year they beat a Kings team that, everyone
wasn't
on
ready.
that team besides Sabonis had never been in the playoffs before.
Yep.
And it still won
Totally
7 games, and Steph had to score like 50 points. Yeah.
Yeah, totally agreed. Okay, well, let's get into a quick fun break from that analysis part and go some top 10 action. So for me, Kyle, I was talking about like players basically like right now heading into this playoff stretch, who would be my top 10? Because it'd be a little different with a fully healthy Embiid, for example. So
yeah,
that's
I kept him
how
off my list. Yeah.
He was an honorable mention for me, Embiid. And, spoiler alert, my first out was Steph.
He didn't make my list either because I'm kind of doing teams I kind of are confident are going to make the playoffs.
Not confident. I thought about that too. It's what made me feel better. Kick us off with number 10.
Number 10, okay. I put Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
Hasn't been the best this year. Turns it up every year for the playoffs. It's like 200% effort. So can't ever discount Jimmy.
I agree. I have the exact same number 10 with Jimmy Butler. Same reasons as you. Like once the calendar turned April, I'm like, all right, I don't care what happened all year. Number 9, Anthony Edwards.
I put Bron number 9.
That's fair.
I think they'll make it. I think he'll will them into the playoffs. He's just that good, that special. Everyone knows that. It's not like this is a crazy take.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with you there.
All right, my number 8 was Ant. We can talk about Ant, really good, best player on one of the best teams, young guy. Can't put him ahead of these other guys that have kind of done it in the playoffs, though.
Mm-hmm.
He's been in 2 first rounds, but he's never won a round, and his performances have been kind of up and down.
Yep, totally agree. And I like Anthony Edwards a lot now.
Oh yeah, I put him number 8 out of fucking 400 guys in the league or whatever,
Right. Yeah, and think about the guys who aren't going to make this list. Like, you obviously think Dame is taking a step back and he's having a down year, but like Dame, for example, not even on the list. Jaylen Brown,
Book on my list.
Devin Booker, not. Yeah, exactly. Like there's some Anthony Davis. Like there's some really good players not even on the list. So this is no shade. And beyond Ant, like same thing goes for my number 8, SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Like really love the player, but until I see you do it in the playoffs, I can't put you ahead of any of these guys that I've got ahead of you now.
Yeah. So what was your number 8? You put SGA?
Yeah.
My okay, I already said my 8. My number 7 is Kawhi. Would have put him a few spots higher, but health,
yeah.
Like he can give you 45 one game in a series, and he's out the next 3, and then your team's out because he didn't play.
Sounds like last year.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I started there with Kawhi, but slowly, the more I looked at the list, the more he went up. So I still got a little bit of time for him. My 7 was LeBron. So basically everything you all said. I couldn't put him any higher, but I felt like I couldn't put him much lower. Like I think last year when I did this list, he was in the exact same spot, which is crazy with how old he is. But 7's where I got LeBron.
All right. So am I up then? Or is
yeah. Yeah, we'll just keep going back and forth.
This is 6 then. I put SGA at 6.
Okay.
Would have put him higher if he's kind of like he has been in the playoffs, but he was young and kind of not a role player, but I'd say kind of in between a role player and a star,
Yeah.
That's where he was then. So 6, like he's obviously proven he can lead a team the regular season. Now I think I want to see him make a conference finals before I can say he's like a definitive like top 5 guy.
Yeah, I think that's a fair standard to hold someone to. Also a standard Embiid still hasn't met.
Yeah, that's why he's not even on my list.
That was your 6, SGA?
Yeah.
My 6 is Kevin Durant.
Okay.
I think he's having a really excellent season, and by all appearances, he's healthy. So heading into the playoffs, it's still very dangerous.
I'm gonna say my 5 was Kevin Durant, and can put up 40 points whenever he wants. He
Yeah.
plays pretty good defense for his age. He's kind of like doesn't get credit for it, but he's one of the better like all around players in the league.
Yeah, he's a two-way player.
Yeah. So
I agree with that. Okay. Yeah. So I put 5 is where I ended up getting Kawhi all the way up to. I've always been a big Kawhi Leonard fan, and last year in the playoffs, it was like, oh, whoa, he's still got that A+ in him. And this year he's had stretches like that too. And this is his most healthy year since 2016, I think, or at least since the Raptors. So I'm happy about what I've seen from Kawhi. I am still nervous. Otherwise, he might have been able to push 4 for me, but 5 is where he landed.
All right. 4, I have Jason Tatum.
Yep.
He just people don't like him. People try to say he's not, one of the top guys in the league. But when he makes the playoffs, besides one season of his career, he makes the conference finals. He makes the conference finals. If that's a floor for a guy, I'll take that every year.
You will take that every year.
All right.
No, I agree with you though. I've got Tatum also at 4. He's I've always actually been, believe it or not, Kyle, a fairly vocal Tatum defender when it comes to like talking to Jay specifically. Jay hates Tatum, always has.
He thinks Drew Holiday is better than Tatum. He had that debate with me like 2 years ago. He was like, I would take Holiday over Tatum every day.
I love Holiday, and you do too, obviously now, but Tatum's a beast. Number 4. I can't put him any higher. If I had no injury concerns for Kawhi, I'd give Kawhi a slight nod.
Oh, yeah. But Kawhi just has the experience of being the guy.
Yeah. But, yeah, I agree with you there on Tatum. 3, I think we'll agree here too. I've got Luka.
I have Giannis at 3.
Oh!
I have Giannis at 3. I mean, it's not that big of a slight, man. I'm saying he's the 3rd best player in the league.
Sir.
The Bucks have slipped these last few years, man. And if Giannis is going to have to carry them to at least one playoff series victory this year, where there's going to be some discussions about that, man, this offseason. I hope Bucks fans are ready for that, though. If they do flout, I kind of hope they don't. I kind of want the Celtics to have the hardest road so they don't get discredited at all, So I hope we play the Bucks in the conference finals, but the Bucks have shown a tendency where they could lose to a worse team in the playoffs. Like it's not I'm not saying Giannis isn't a great player, but like I don't know. I think Luka this season at least has been a little bit better than him.
So I hear you on like the Bucks fears side of things, as far as like, they've been underwhelming. Last year they were the 1 seed, and then obviously the playoffs was underwhelming, and this year it's the regular season that's underwhelming. But if I'm comparing them to Luka, their numbers are both eye-popping. Giannis is 30, 10, and 6 on 60% shooting, something insane. And, doing his normal damage on defense with like a defensive rating of like 112 or something like that, which is Depoy-esque. Not that he should be the Depoy, but Depoy-esque.
I do think it is bogus how Giannis is kind of getting ignored for awards now, though.
It is bogus, but I would push harder from an MVP standpoint if the Bucks could win some goddamn games. But, I mean, that's a little harsh. They're obviously the 2 seed, but still, like, they're underperforming from a wins and losses standpoint down the stretch here. But I don't think that's a Giannis thing. Like, I think it's just a Bucks messiness thing. And I'm not giving up on them. That. I'm still going to ride with them as long as I can. But I don't think Giannis should be at 3. And then the idea of discussions about him, Yes, if they lose in the first round, that's the nature of the NBA. If you go out multiple early playoff exits when you're a contender, when you're supposed to be the best player in the league or at least up there, like you're going to start getting some question marks. But because he has done it, I don't think it'll come down as hard as it has for other guys.
Yeah.
And there are some built-in excuses with the Bucks, so he might just get a pass altogether one more time. But I do hear you from a pressure standpoint, but I still see Giannis as the best player in the game, even though most people think it's undeniably Jokic. But that's where I stand.
Jokic on top. It's like Luka is just kind of leading one of the hottest teams in the league going into the playoff stretch, and the Bucks are kind of like a car breaking down before the finish line, So that's the only reason I had those two, Luka above Giannis, just for this upcoming, playoffs.
Yeah, I hear you. Luka's been on a tear, and I love Luka as well. Like, I'm honestly surprised at the Mavs and how they've ascended down the stretch here. And
ever since they traded for Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington, they've been one of the best teams in the league.
Which I did not give a lot of attention to those trades when they happened.
All they had to do was just kick off fucking Grant Williams. And I don't know, man. The last two teams that got rid of Grant Williams have been pretty good this year. I was a Grant guy, but I can see why all the reports say that he's just a fucking asshole. No one likes being around him on a team.
I mean, I could see that. I don't like how he played against the Bucks. Jeez. I don't like what did he do against the Heat last year? Didn't he like mock Jimmy Butler or something like that?
He actually played pretty decent against the Heat, but he did rile up Jimmy Butler a few times early in the series. I mean, that kind of led to their first 2 wins in Boston, because it was late in game. They were both like kind of jump ball situations where they were both fighting, and then after they're talking shit. It's like, Grant, you can't, like,
can't do that.
Jimmy Butler, you can't egg him on like that.
No.
Especially because you can do nothing about it. So you're writing a check that your teammates have to cash,
Yep. I think you're right.
It's like you're doing, like, yeah, you're talking shit to him, but like last year's like, yeah, Marcus Smart or Jaylen Brown, they have to stop him. They have to like score on him in all these possessions. Like, you're just in the corner the whole time.
Right.
Like, you can't be doing that.
It's like if a D lineman was talking shit to a receiver, and then the corner's like, bro, I'm the one guarding him.
Yeah. It's like fucking Greg Gangs on the Buccaneers going up to Jefferson, be like, you fucking suck, dude. Just having whatever DB on the Buccaneers be like, oh fuck, oh no,
Man. All right.
And then we both have Jokic at 1.
No, I told you. I got Giannis at 1. Jokic is at 2.
Well, Jokic has the crown, so he's 1 for me.
That's fair. I understand it, and I don't expect anyone to. It's, obviously somewhat of a lens I see things through when it comes to the Bucks. So it is what it is. Now, last couple things here, all about execution in the playoffs, starting with what player, coach, or team most needs to perform this playoffs. And we'll just kind of go back and forth on this one.
I have an answer for all 3 at once.
Oh, boy. What,
Celtics,
the question?
Tatum, Mazzulla.
Okay.
All 3, like, obviously, if they all, it's like they're all 1 together, but Celtics, they need to. They're best team in the league record-wise by far. Tatum, he had a good playoffs last year, kind of slacked against the Heat a bit. Game 7 gets hurt, can't really do much. And the Warriors finals the year before, so people are kind of low on him ever since that.
Yep.
Him winning this year, finals MVP, people respect him again. He gets consistently in the top 5 talks like he should be no matter what, in my opinion. Mazzulla, people have been calling for his job, and no matter, every time they lose, even though they have the best record in the league, like, and everyone doubts the Celtics. You're like, oh, Brown can't dribble. Porzingis is going to get hurt. Derek White is weird looking. Holiday can't score in the playoffs.
All right, Jason Kelsey, take it easy. Aguilar can't catch.
Yeah. our three best guys off the bench are three weird looking white guys. You know, it's like it's that whole team is they all can gang so much by winning and also lose so much by losing, if you get my point, you know?
Yeah, I do. And Tatum was on my list of people to get to eventually. I figured you'd go Celtics heavy, so I didn't really,
I went the clean sweep on the first pick.
But you're right, like for all of those reasons, because Tatum, obviously, I think he's safe. You know, if you don't win the finals, like he's just gonna be stuck where he is, as far as like discussed as the 6th to 8th best guy by a lot.
You always be like, can he be the best guy on a winning team? You know?
Yeah, and it's hard. It's hard to be that. He almost was already, so you can make that argument too. But I agree with you that Mazzulla, especially, I think he'd be the one who actually takes a fall if the Celtics underperform. If you get to the finals and lose to the Nuggets, I don't think anyone's going to care.
I think if we don't make the conference finals, I think he doesn't have a job with the Celtics next year.
Oh, I totally agree with that.
Either Sam Cassell will just be promoted to our head coach, who's been our lead assistant all year.
That'd be kind of cool. Well, my top picks were on the Bucks side, and I had a Dame Doc duo. Bucks in general, I could have went with you like you did.
Yeah, let's just do a clean sweep for that. I want to talk about the Bucks.
Yeah, because for Dame, the Bucks obviously, we didn't have very many assets left to give, and yet we still found a way to borrow from the future to win today. And if we don't win today, that hurts, and that blame, a lot of that's going to fall on Dame.
Especially because the guy you traded is on. I won't say they're the biggest rival to win the East.
Yeah.
A starter who's contributing and like playing some of his better basketball recently. Yeah, because he doesn't have to do as much. And I see what you're saying about Dame too. It's like you were brought in to help close these playoff games. Yep. Like if he throws up some stinkers, he'll have generational slander against him online.
I agree. Generational.
And Doc, he's already getting it, Yeah. 14-14 is him as the coach. That's bad for the talent they have on that team, even though it's like an older team, like as their like main guys. And I think Middleton, like if Middleton underperforms, I think this might be the end of him as a full-time starter in the league.
On a contender, yeah, but he could be like a Harrison Barnes when he disappeared into the nothingness, like that type of a starter. Like there's teams he can start on, but
that's what I mean. It's like kind of like a good team.
Yeah. So, strangely enough, I think Middleton's legacy has gotten a bump in the last year or so. Like post his injury in the playoffs
while he's hurt.
Yeah, because the Bucks were a champion last time he was healthy, and he was awesome in that playoffs. Like he really was.
Yeah, that's probably the peak of his playing career in the NBA.
Absolutely,
because that in the Olympics, he just went crazy.
He was a baller in the Olympics. Because actually, do you remember when the Bucks, before the Bucks had ascended, they were the 7 seed. They played the Celtics.
Yep, I remember that series.
Middleton was going crazy. He was averaging
when he became known as the Celtic killer.
Yeah. But yeah, back to the Middleton side of things. I don't necessarily think he's under pressure or anything like that. Like I think his legacy is actually way beyond what it ever should have been. Like I love Chris Middleton. He's one of my favorite players. But
all Bucks fans should.
Yeah, dude. There's a lot of Bucks fans that historically gave him slander pre that ring. And I get it, he wasn't the best second star ever, but he got it done and he punched above his weight class for sure. But yes, the Bucks in general are under a lot of pressure because they're also very old.
Yeah, Lopez is not I loved Lopez when he first came to the Bucks, when he still had his athleticism a bit and he started draining threes. It was just so fun to watch him play, even though, a rival team I'm a fan of, but there's always something I liked about watching this new version of Brook Lopez play, because he just became one of the best defenders in the league out of nowhere and could just splash threes from 5 feet behind the 3-point line. And now he's he's just lumbering around out there. He doesn't. Sometimes he's just kind of not lost, but like his body can't get to the spots he wants to quick enough. It's just the case of an aging, not star, but like really good player.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. And I am leaving the possibility open in a lot of ways. I'm banking on that the Bucks are going to completely turn a page come playoff time because they are an old team and they've been kind of stuck in that 2 spot for like 20 plus games now, where we knew we weren't catching the Celtics and we were pretty comfortable with our lead over the Cavs. So I do think it's possible that a lot of these guys can just flip it and be good for a month and that's it. Because I don't, maybe some Lopez, for instance, might just be saving the gas because his tank is pretty low.
All it takes is like, they say they match up with the Heat first round and like, beat those demons, and then whoever they, and they start rolling because they start getting more confidence,
Yeah.
Because this group is kind of, I won't say they're inexperienced, but like with Dame and Doc, that, they haven't been through all this together.
Yeah.
Even though like a majority, I won't say majority, but like a good amount of like the rotation, like, yeah, we've played a lot of playoff games together, like Chris and Giannis and Brooke, Connaughton, even though he's not the best anymore. Bobby, yeah. Pat Bev has experience, even though he's kind of injured now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's something the Bucks can't afford is any injuries at guard. And right now, Dame's missed a couple of games. We lost to a couple stinko teams. But let's take a break from the Bucks. We talked about the Cavs earlier. They were my next team that needs to perform.
Yeah, I agree. They stunk up the bed last year.
Yeah,
they got outworked, even though they had on the boards against Mitchell Robinson, Hartenstein, when they have 2 of the better young bigs in the league with Mobley and Jared Allen.
Yep.
And Garland just disappeared, and now LeVert did jack shit, but now they replaced him with Strus. So are they hoping Strus can bring his playoff magic from the Heat, It's like
playoff magic stays in Miami.
Yeah, it's like I liked Strus as a player. Even when he was on the Heat, I was like, you kind of got to respect the guy that kind of worked his way up through the G League and all that to get, like, be a starter and a key player on a contender for like 2-3 years. Like, he's obviously a really good player, but like, you're bringing back the same team from last year pretty much, and you're most likely, it looks like you're going to play against the Knicks, and you don't want to go down that road again. And Donovan Mitchell, I think his reputation as like a top player could go down a lot if they lose again early, like first round embarrassing loss.
Yeah, because Mitchell, like, he should be someone worth thinking about at least in that top 10 conversation. Like, he should be on our mind because we've seen him have some, in the bubble at least, he had an awesome playoff series.
Last year, he even like dropped like a 60-point game, last season.
Regular season, right?
Yeah.
So like he's the superstar potential and he's got flashes of it, but we got to see a little bit more of it and see it in the playoffs, on the Cavs at least. Because even with the Jazz, like, they were always disappointing. Speaking of disappointing, who's really under pressure? Freaking Bradley Beal.
Oh, yeah. That whole Suns team, they went all in. They have no draft picks. They got no young guys. They're all in.
Yeah.
For a team that isn't really that good.
No. Like, they're a scary matchup, but, like, they ain't going anywhere.
They just have no big men. Like, Nurkic is fine, but what's he gonna do against Jokic in the West, or like AD, or like, even though they probably won't match up, but like, playoffs get crazy. Some lower seeds can win some rounds.
Yeah,
but like, yeah, I don't know. The Suns, Kevin Durant, even though no matter what people want to say about him, his legacy is stamped. He's a top 15 player all time. Can raise higher a little bit higher if he does some stuff in these last few years of his career. Booker is on pace to be like a Hall of Famer. But like, yeah, Beal, Beal was the guy that they're like, with him, we're set. We can do this. And if he underperforms, that might be one of the worst trades like in recent NBA history.
I think they would have been better off getting Drew.
But like the thing is, they should have been patient. But the first guy available, they're like, give. You know, it's like they're like, just a kid at a toy store. The first thing you see is like, oh, mine. I want it. That's mine. You know.
Yep. Yeah, I think you're right. And because last year, like when they fired, what's his name? Monty Williams.
Yep.
When they fired him, I didn't like it at all. But when they hired Frank Vogel, I was like, I kind of like this because he can unlock Ayton. And then they traded away Ayton. And I just find their direction as a franchise very confusing. Because, you know, they went all in with a core that just never really, you know, it was always going to have a lot of question marks. Like going into the season, I thought maybe like it could have a lot of fireworks and be really dangerous, but it just hasn't been.
I to defend them a bit, they did have a lot of injuries to their top three guy. Durant's played a lot, but Booker and Beal did both get hurt a pretty decent amount this year.
Beal's always been kind of injury prone, though.
Yeah, I don't.
Like you get what you're
trying to give maybe a little optimism for. I did like the Suns a few years ago. I don't like them as much anymore, but it would be cool to see a team that's never won anything, you know, do something.
Yeah. I mean that's fair. I wouldn't mind. I would not mind at all. Like we got Devin Booker was on the cover art today. But do you have anyone else like for the perform before we move over to Dark Horse?
Yeah, I do. I said it earlier, but the Pelicans.
Yeah.
Like this they were cooking before Brandon Ingram got hurt a few weeks ago.
Cooking.
And like if they don't do anything in the playoffs, you can't bring back this roster. Like I don't think Zion will be gone, but I could see them trading one of CJ or Ingram or maybe both. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or maybe if someone throws him a crazy offer for Zion, you don't know. You really don't know what like the GM or like the owners are thinking of the team. Like, so if this team wants to stick around together, they have to do something in the playoffs.
I would agree. They have no option. Like I don't even necessarily know. Like they don't have to win a series or anything, but like if they get in and they go to like 6 games against like the Thunder or something like that, I think you'd look back and be like, all right, step in the right direction. Zion is a foundational piece. Now let's figure out a real roster. So yeah. I totally agree. Like they need to perform at least getting into the playoffs and then not looking garbage when they are in. So yeah, I agree on the Pelicans. Sneakily though, I think they're also on the flip side. I think they could be a dark horse, like slightly, like an upset.
I also had them on my dark horse list.
Yeah, they were first up for me, not as like going deep, but like as a first round upset team. Like I could totally see that.
Yeah, because like if they're healthy, they were beating a lot of good teams.
Right. Like they beat the Bucks recently.
Yeah, they were on a roll till Ingram sprained something in his knee. He should be back by the playoffs, but you never know with injuries and rehab times and whatnot.
Right.
I had the Magic is a dark horse team to make it like conference finals. Maybe they get a few of the right matchups, get some luck. They could be in the conference finals. Not incomprehensible.
Yeah, I mean it's for a lot of those middle pack East teams, it's always possible. The Hawks did that, a couple of years ago. So my East team I chose for that was the Knicks. They get attention because they're New York, but I don't think anyone really takes them seriously when come playoff time, myself included. But things break their way. I could see them upsetting like the Bucks, for instance.
I think it hurts a little bit having Randall out for the season now and OG kind of having like iffy injury history.
Yeah.
But if they could definitely win a round or maybe even 2, depending on like their matchup in the second round.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So I put Dallas.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think they're the biggest dark horse.
Yeah, they've been really good second half of the season since the trade deadline. I think they won like 9 in a row till they played the Warriors and lost by like 1 the other day. So they're obviously in like the right direction. This is kind of what they did a few years ago when they made the conference finals as a 4 seed. That's when they traded Porzingis midseason for like Dinwiddie and a bunch of guards.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then Brunson had his breakout that off season.
He did.
Yeah.
I agree though. The Mavs are dangerous, especially with Kyrie's been playing well this year, and you mentioned the bigs that they traded for.
Depends on Kyrie's health, because like he's been an injury prone guy. He's probably his whole career he's been like injury prone. This is important games. Not always. I mean, injuries are never anyone's fault, but like he gets a lot of them when it's kind of inconvenient for his team.
Right. Yeah, and it's a reality. It's not like it's his fault or anything like that, but it is what it is type of a deal. So I totally agree with that. Do you have any other dark horses?
I put Suns. I don't know if they're really a dark horse just because they haven't been great this year, but like
low seed.
They could win, Heat, I put just because they're seeding, but they're not a dark horse at all.
8 seed last year.
Yeah, but like I'm just based on their seeding, like they could always make a run,
That's like if UConn was the 8 seed in March Madness right now, and you want to pick them as an upset. Like, no, we know better.
Yeah. And it doesn't. I don't know. They're the 9 seed, but the Lakers they got LeBron and Anthony Davis.
Yeah,
it's
and some decent pieces.
I could see them conference finals, not easily, but it wouldn't surprise me if they were there.
Yeah, kind of like last year. If things break their way, they can take advantage.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's like it wouldn't surprise. I guess it would surprise me and not surprise me to say it's like the middle, just like, oh, okay, well, okay, like you guys did this again.
Yeah, it's less likely. Like I give them like a 25% chance type of thing, to where they make the conference finals.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be like a surprise.
Yeah, like you knew it was possible, but you didn't think it was likely.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're on the same page there.
Yeah. I think we look at the Lakers pretty much the same. How about let's do quickly to wrap up here. Our last one is, who are 3 players to look out for in this playoff run?
So did you mean like underrated guys or just guys that can, like swing a series, or I didn't know what you
Either way you interpret it.
All right. I guess first it's not a surprise to you. I'm picking a guy on this team, but Kristaps.
Okay.
Never really been he's only been in 2 playoff series ever. Never made it past the first round. I'm looking at what he can do in like later more pressure rounds. Keep up the kind of play he's had this year where he's kind of, I won't say he's not our best. He's our X factor against teams like he's just someone that when he's on, you can't really guard.
Yeah.
Like he can shoot over anyone. He has post moves. He's a great rim protector. It's like he's a guy that if you're in a series, you don't want to see him like hot or on a roll, like going game to game, like he's a game breaker when he's at his best.
I 100% agree with you. I don't have any pushback because, people forget Kristaps was like kind of like the original unicorn.
He was. He was the unicorn.
Yeah, like that's what they call it, right? And
yeah, that was his nickname. Yeah.
That and Tingus Pingus. You ever see that video of the draft reaction? Who is Tingus Pingus?
Kind of crazy the career journey he's had,
Yeah,
With Knicks, he was their franchise guy. Mavericks, he was mad he wasn't the guy. Then he humbled himself and he
was he at the Wizards?
He focused on like making his game on the Wizards so he could be like a guy on a good team, and now he's on a great team and he's just humble and he's just like, I'll take whatever I can get. I'll play defense. I'll rebound. I'll let these other guys that are better than me do what they do, which is like he didn't really have that attitude when he played with like Luka.
Yeah, Yeah, I agree with you. Kristaps he's a really good player, so I'm not going to push back. My only pushback ever on him has just been the injury thing. So
And he's, knock on wood, been pretty healthy this season.
so far so good, but now it's when it counts. My first pick is going to be Mike Conley. So another guy that, everyone's pretty aware of, but dude, it's just so cool how long he's been like a good and relevant player. Like it's great to see true point guards, and he is so important to that Grizzlies team. Like he gives them another element, especially with Cat out lately, to where, he could go get you 20 every now and again. Like not every game by any means, but he can.
But he can do it.
Yeah, he can make plays, but he's more of a floor general, which works well next to Ant.
And him and Gobert have like such good chemistry from the years they played together with Utah, and
yep.
He has the experience, the calming factor for younger guys on the team.
Yep. Love Mike Conley.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Do you want to go again, or is it up to me again?
I'll go quickly. Another guard for me. I wanted Terry Rozier. He's been on a tear, man. Like, whoa. I was not familiar until I was actually taking some time.
Oh, how are you not familiar with Scary Terry?
No. I know mostly because of what he did to Eric or Drew Bledsoe at the time. I know obviously know who he is and seen his game, but I didn't know how much of a tear he's been on right now.
Yeah, I've always been a Terry guy. Not as much now that he's on a competing team. I've always loved him for what he did when he stepped up. Was 6 years ago now, which was crazy. Don't like that one bit. When Kyrie and Hayward went down and kind of became like our second or third best player in that playoff stretch they made that season, when they ended up losing to LeBron in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals.
Is that when Tatum dunked on LeBron?
Yeah, it was. But what is funny is the game ended when Terry tried to dunk on him like a couple possessions later, and LeBron just sent it back, and that's when you knew it was over.
That Cavs team was garbage too. They were not good.
One guy I'm looking at in a different way is Cat, assuming he's healthy, because he's been a historic underperformer in the playoffs. He fouls out of games a lot. He doesn't score nearly as much as he does in the regular season. He doesn't rebound. Rebounding and defense has never been his thing, but when you drop off on offense that much, you kind of become like a nuisance to play, I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I think it does.
It's like, you're one of our best players. We can't take you out, but you underperform so much. It's like, what
are we going to do?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. And that's something to keep an eye out for, because I think it's very realistic that Anthony Towns gets traded in the next year or two here.
If they underperform, yeah, definitely. But if they keep winning, then
they'll ride it out. But I agree with you there. So yeah, a little different direction, almost more of a wild card player to look out for. So I had two left.
Just do them both.
All right. Well, quickly then. So I had Trey Murphy.
Yeah, I love Trey Murphy. He was my sixth man of the year pick.
I know you do.
He didn't play enough games.
When I listed it out, I was like, Kyle's going to be pumped. And then my other one was Kyrie, just because of the history that he's had. He's only really one or two great playoff runs in his career, but it was when he was alongside a Luka-esque offensive player and LeBron at the time.
He's never made it to the conference finals without LeBron. Celtics, the year we made it, he was hurt. Next year, we lost to the Bucks. The Nets, he didn't even play most of that year, his first year. Then, him and Harden get hurt against the Bucks.
Yeah.
Can't really blame either of them for that. But after that, then he gets swept in the first round against the Celtics. And last year, they didn't even make the playoffs with the Mavericks.
Yeah, I agree with you, though. But now that he's back on a team with a Luka, for instance, that can carry you for a round, I think I'm less worried about that. Not like I'm banking on Kyrie, just someone to keep an eye out for.
Yeah. I have two guys on the same team. First playoff experience, really young, Franz and Paolo. I want to see
Okay.
what they do.
Yeah.
I'm really high on those two as a duo. I think I mentioned that a lot before the season, and like every time
Yep.
I've been on since we talked about, NBA focused episodes. I think
Yeah.
those guys are really good. They remind me a lot, not like they don't play the same way, but they remind me a lot of like Jalen and Jason coming in consecutive drafts and just kind of
Yeah.
changing the team's trajectory for the next how many years, two high level wings, which are kind of like really hard to find. They can play both
Right.
ways.
At the same time, too.
Yeah. Like both coming into their prime, not prime, but like both being good enough to be leaders of a playoff team.
Yeah.
And helping like build off that. I really want to keep an eye on those two, and like I hope they do good. I'd love to see the Magic win around. I really like the team they have with Jalen Suggs and Wendell Carter too. Love Wendell Carter, Duke guy, really good guy.
He was on the Bulls, right?
He was on the Bulls, and he was part of the Vucevic trade, and so was the pick that was Franz Wagner.
Oh, so they traded Bulls.
They traded Franz and Wendell for Vucevic, and the Bull. That's a bad trade.
Yep.
Prediction: the Bulls don't make the playoffs, and they trade a couple guys this summer.
If someone will take them, I don't think anyone wants that Levine contract. But yeah, I like your Magic picks, both of them, because we were both kind of high on them coming into the year, but they outperformed either of our expectations even.
I think we both picked Franz for most improved going into the year. He might have won if he didn't miss like a decent amount of games mid-season.
Yeah, you're probably right. Maxey is the betting favorite now?
He's a favorite, but I think Jalen Williams from the Thunder should win.
J-Dub?
Yeah. One more guy, Chet. I want to see how Chet holds up against the other big men in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's actually a good one.
I just thought of that right now. I want to see how he holds up. Having a guard, maybe an AD, a Jokic, even like, Zion. Not even someone that's nowhere near as good of him, but he's just a big burly guy. Like a Valanciunas or a Nurkic,
Yeah. No, I think that's actually a really good take and might be the most variable and most unknown. We just don't know.
We don't know anything about that team in the playoffs.
No, not at all. All right. Wow, we covered a lot of fucking ground today.
That's just what happens when I'm on the episode.
It is. And when we got both basketball and football to talk. But that's a wrap for episode 66, Order and Execution, right? Or Execution and Order. One of the two. Either way.
You named it, dude. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. But Kyle, thanks as always for coming on to chat with me on Mad Talk, and everyone else, thanks for joining in. Kyle, you still going to lead a mock draft with Drake when I'm out?
Oh shit, I forgot about that. Yeah, I will. When's that again?
2 weeks from now.
Okay, I will talk to him, and I think I might try to get Connor Ray or someone else on the episode too.
Okay.
Awesome. You will have to. Does Drake know how to record the episode?
Yeah, Drake knows how to do everything, so he'll be able to run it. I've been talking to him about it already, so everything will be smooth for you guys.
All right. Thanks for reminding me about that, because I will do that.
Okay.
All right.
Awesome. Well, enjoy the week off, Kyle. Thanks everyone else for joining in, and as always, give us a like and a follow, and we'll catch you again next week.
Thumbs up.